Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and we're out here today to pour concrete in these Sonotubes. If you haven't been following along, this is going to support a bridge that's going to reach from the island where the windmill is over to this side. I used a post hole auger on the skid loader to dig these a couple days ago, and now we need to get the concrete poured. So I'm gonna have to use a generator to run the mixer. I've got 32 80-pound bags of concrete set out here. I'm gonna make sure the tops of my tubes are level, and then we'll get started. Okay, so we're set to this one. So this one's about 1 inch high. Okay, so I've got 2 of them that are perfect. This one's about 1 inch high. I'm gonna see if I can knock it down. And that one won't go down any further, and it's about 4 or 5 inches high. So I'm gonna mark it off of the transit and then cut it off. So I've been doing a little math here. These are 80-pound bags, and I got 30 of them. That's 2,400 pounds. Feels like you might have to move each one 2 or 3 times if you count lifting it into the mixer. And if we end up putting it in buckets, you'll have to lift the bucket. So that's, if you do it 3 times, that's 7,200 pounds, which is above my lift capacity. So I've got the 3rd place in the state of Oklahoma wrestler right here from a few years back. Now he's got an old soul but a young body, so he should be perfect for helping me on this. Yeah, if you want to set the bags on this, I'll roll them down to the mixer.
Okay. How many at a time?
Let's try 4.
4 at a time? That's good.
And if I roll the dolly down the hill, then we'll stick with 4. If it rolls me down the hill, we'll cut back to 2.
Gotcha. Did it roll you?
It took me, I didn't take it. So I thought I was using the scientific method there, where you experiment with different amounts, but next time I might experiment with the small amount and then work up, instead of the big amount and work down. Okay, I haven't actually checked the usage on it, but I think this Champion dual fuel generator will run the mixer. We're gonna run it today on propane, and on propane it's 3,100 continuous watts. Surely the mixer's not more than that. We got it on propane, flip that on, and should be ready to start. how it does. Yep. Depending on where you're dumping your concrete, sometimes you can dump it while the mixer's still spinning, and there's actually a reverse setting on the mixer that you used for emptying out the contents, but the switch is going bad on this mixer, and so I don't want to mess with that switch a lot. So what we found worked the best was actually shutting it off to dump it. Another thing we found, and you could see it in that shot just a minute ago, is you have to be careful dumping the concrete in because it can try to tip while you're dumping it if you get the weight too far forward. So we put it in our routine that I would hold the back of the mixer every time he dumped concrete in. And we got a routine down and got to moving pretty quick. Now we're about half full, and it's above ground level. I'm gonna start tapping the sides of this every time, just to make sure it's mixing. And then I've got these 4 long pieces of rebar. Concrete's gonna be 5 foot, these are 4 foot. I'll go ahead and put those in. Then I can work that up and down to make sure it doesn't have any air pockets. Yep. So these Sonotubes are 4 foot tall, and they needed to stick out of the ground about 2 feet. But I wasn't happy with just 2 feet of concrete below grade. So we dug the holes deeper, and we've got a little over 3 foot below grade and 2 foot above grade. That is 5 feet of continuous concrete with 4 foot rebar buried inside of it. Now we're going to put in the J-bolts. For the second one, I'm going to run a string that intersects our starting point with this J-bolt. For this one, I need to just see where 40 inches centers between these 2 columns. Okay, 40 inches is about 1/3 of the way in. I'm going to set this one at that point. All the future ones will basically be set off this one. We're going to put this one in at a set spot. The other one's 40 inches off of it. Then we're going to run our string line. See if we can get it back just a little bit more and then just move the front legs over. Okay. See where that's going to set. You already knew you were going to do. I have 2 other videos on the channel where I mix concrete with this same mixer, and in those instances I was carrying it to my location with 5-gallon buckets. And you know, I can do it, but those were closer to 10 or 15 bags. With this being 30 bags, I was definitely glad for some help. And for anyone who's actually getting ready to do a project like this, I came up with about 7 bags per pier, and that's about how it worked out. I'm gonna hold that on the top of that.
Yep.
Pouring this concrete was exactly the same for every pier, so I'm going to skip through all the rest of the concrete mixing and get to how we lined up our J-bolts. I'm basically matching this bridge to the dimensions of the other bridge, aside from the fact that it's obviously longer. But width-wise, we're sticking to that 40 inches, and we're using that as a reference for how far apart the J-bolts should be. So we've marked off exactly where one end of the bridge will set, and just run string from that to the other end, and made each string cross our first J-bolt. Then we made sure that the other end of the string was 40 inches, and all of those numbers added up, and we were able to set the next set of J-bolts directly under the string. So it should come out square. I think that turned out pretty good. The J-bolts are in perfectly straight lines, 40 inches apart. It's gonna set on that side. I'll have to cut this side down a little bit for a place for it to set. I also would have the option of raising it another 4 or 6 inches, which I might do, whether that was by having feet under the bridge that lifted it up or whatever. There's options that I could still raise it just a little bit. Anyway, I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.